Training video, I will show you how to use the Learning Focus Toolbox to create a KUD chart. Once you come into the login screen, you're going to put in your username, which is your Conrad Weiser email, and then also your password. Once you're signed into the toolbox, you're going to have a choice. So you're either going to go to your Manage Documents and work on a unit that you've already created, or like in this demo, I'm going to create a new unit and then create the KUD chart right from the very beginning. This new unit I'm going to call LA Demo, and this is really going to be 8th grade nonfiction. So you have an idea of what this unit is going to be about and what standards I'm going to use. You can edit these items up here. This is going to be about a week's worth of content. Like I said, the subject is going to be English Language Arts, and this will be 8th grade. And you can customize this any way you want to. For this particular unit, I'm going to be able to use assessment anchors since this is language arts. And the nice thing about the assessment anchors is they drill down to the very discrete skills that we want students to be able to do, and also the knowledge that we want them to obtain. Sometimes when you use just the standards, you have to add some of that language. But those of you that have assessed areas like mathematics and language arts, you can use the assessment anchors. So in this particular case, I am going to use the 8th grade assessment anchors. As I said before, this unit is going to be nonfiction, so I'm going to use mostly R8, A2, and the anchors that come under this heading. For this particular unit, I am going to have students identify and apply the meaning of vocabulary in nonfiction. And there really are two assessment anchors. And both of these contain some things that I want students to know and also be able to do. So what's nice about the toolbox is once I have an assessment anchor or a standard, I can tag it as a know or a do. So I'm going to double click on this and say, yes, this is going to become a know and a do in my KUD chart. Now once I've tagged it, you'll see it actually tags it. I can see those tags. What's nice about this is if I go to use this standard or this assessment anchor in another unit or KUD chart, I will notice that I've already tagged it as a K and a D. Once I do that, I can grab and place it either in the do column or the no column, doesn't matter. But once I do that, it's going to populate it really in 3 places, under the no, under the do, and if you look up here, it has put that in my standards chart, and if I mouse over it, I can see the full text of that assessment anchor. Well, under the no, I don't need them to know all of those words. I need them to know multiple meaning words. So I'm going to come down here and just edit this. And I want them to know multiple meaning words. And then the language of this assessment anchor is fine. They're going to identify and apply. So I'm going to leave that language as is. Number 1.2, I'm going to do exactly the same thing. I'm going to tag it as a know and a do. And then when I pull it into my map, I'm going to just edit the know and I want to make sure I didn't save that. You got to make sure that you save these before you click out. So I'm going to save that. I'm going to come down here and I want them to know content-specific words. I want them to know what that means. So we're going to edit this and then click the green button or the green check mark, and then that saves my edits. So I want them to know multiple meaning words, content-specific words, and then they're going to identify, apply both. Up here you'll see these links are my breadcrumbs. It takes me back to this anchor that talks about nonfiction. And I'm going to drill down again, and this time we are going to have the students in this unit doing some inferences, drawing conclusions, and making some generalizations. So I'm going to drill down to the anchor. In this first one, I'm also going to make this one a K and a D because I want them to know a couple of these words. I want to make sure that they understand them. And I'm going to pull that into my map. And then I'm going to edit here and just make sure that they understand what the word inference means and conclusions. Now, depending on your classes, depending on your students, you may not need to have that in your KUD chart. For my unit, I'm going to just put it there, and we're going to make sure the students understand what those two words mean. Over here, I'm going to leave that kind of as is. And then over here, I'm going to only have them do this. I have a pretty good idea that they understand what evidence means and generalizations. So I'm going to make that just a do. I could double click it, click do, and hit done. The other way you can bring it into your map is just to click and drag it in. And if you only put it on one side, it will tag it as a do. I have two more assessment anchors I want to use. I'm going to go back up and drill in, and I want to go to 4.1. And in this particular unit, I'm going to have my students identify stated or inferred main ideas. We're not going to explain them. We're going to just identify, and then in a later unit, I'm going to have my students work with explaining them. So I'm going to just drag this into this chart. And I'm going to edit the language of the standard just a little bit and say, I want them to just be able to identify. Now, somebody might say, oh, you're changing the standard. Well, I'm only dealing with part of the standard in this particular unit. Later on, sometime in 8th grade, I have to get to that identify and explain. But this is a unit that I'm going to do early on in the semester or school year. So we're going to just work or deal with identify. The nice thing about the KUD chart is if I go up to that standard, 241, the full language is still there. But I've chosen in this unit just to deal with identify. Now, I need to know as a teacher later on, I have to get to that explain. But in this particular unit, we're just going to identify, and later on we're going to explain. What's nice about the KUD, once I'm finished with this, and I go on and I start my student learning map, all my no's and all the do's that I chose and how I've edited them come over. So as I build my student learning map, I have this information ready for me to go. And that's how you use the Learning Focus Toolbox to create a KUD organizer using assessment anchors or standards.